I never thought my life would turn into a tabloid headline. He slept with her sister. It sounds ridiculous. Trashy. Like something you hear on daytime TV and shake your head at. But that was me. That was my truth. I was the one who did it. And I still don't know how to forgive myself. I married Emily when I was 28. She was light. That's the best word for her. Light in her laugh, in her touch, in the way she looked at me like I was worth something. She grounded me. Gave me peace. Her family welcomed me like one of their own, especially her younger sister, Rachel. Rachel was always around. Close-knit family, always helping each other out. Holidays, birthdays, random Tuesday dinners. At first, it was innocent. She was just my wife's sister. Funny, a bit wild, always had a glass of wine in hand and some dramatic story to tell. Emily would laugh and roll her eyes. That's just Rachel. But one night changed everything. Emily was out of town, visiting her sick aunt in Florida. I stayed back because of work. Rachel stopped by with takeout, said she didn't want me eating alone. We'd done that before. It wasn't weird. Until it was. We drank. Too much. She opened a second bottle. Then a third. We started talking about things we probably shouldn't have. About Emily. About our own disappointments. About the what-ifs we never explored. And then she kissed me. God help me, I kissed her back. It didn't feel wrong in the moment. It felt electric. Years of tension bursting out all at once. I pulled away, but not fast enough. Not before the damage was done. The next morning, we both agreed it was a mistake. A terrible, awful mistake. We swore it wouldn't happen again. It did. Twice more. I didn't know how to look at myself. I didn't know how to look at Emily. I avoided her eyes. I flinched at her touch. And she noticed. Of course she noticed. Are you okay? She asked me one night. You've been off. I'm just tired, I said. Lies. Everything was lies now. But it didn't stop there. Lies never do. They multiply. They bury you. And then came the night it all fell apart. It was a Saturday. Emily had cooked dinner, her famous lemon rosemary chicken, the one she always made when she was feeling especially loving. The house smelled like home, like safety. She set the table with candles. She even wore that soft blue dress I used to tell her she looked like a dream in. She was trying. God, she was trying to pull us back to what we used to be. And I was sitting across from her with a secret rotting inside me. We talked, but I wasn't really there. She noticed. Of course she noticed. Her voice got quieter. Her smile dimmed. She asked me to help her clear the table, and I followed her into the kitchen like a man walking toward his own execution. That's when she said it. I know, Tyler. 3 words. Quiet. Controlled. But they sliced through me. I froze. No, what? She turned to face me. Her eyes were glassy but hard. Don't insult me. I didn't say anything. What could I say? Deny it? Lie again? She deserved more than that. She deserved at least the truth now that everything was already broken. So I nodded. Just once. She looked like I'd slapped her. How long? She whispered. I opened my mouth, but the words caught. How long? How do you measure betrayal? In nights? In touches? In the way I couldn't sleep next to her anymore without guilt crawling down my spine? 3 times I said. It wasn't a relationship. It was a mistake. She laughed. A bitter, broken sound. A mistake you repeated. With my sister. I'd never felt smaller than in that moment. I wanted to disappear. To be erased from her memory, from the timeline of her life. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just looked at me like I was a stranger who'd wandered into her house and shattered everything she'd spent years building. You need to leave, she said. I tried to speak, to explain, to tell her it didn't mean anything. But that was the worst part, it didn't. It wasn't love. It wasn't passion. It was weakness. It was me failing her in the worst possible way. I'm sorry, I whispered. Not as sorry as I am, she said. I packed a bag. She didn't watch. She just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor like she was trying to find solid ground. I left that night. But the story didn't end there. No, it was only beginning. Because Rachel had her own truth to tell. And it was about to burn the rest of the house down. The first night away from Emily felt like falling into a void. I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town, the kind with flickering neon signs and paper-thin walls. The air smelled like bleach and old smoke. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the textured wallpaper, trying to remember how I got here. How did I let everything crumble so fast? I traded the warmth of my wife's trust for a handful of impulsive nights with someone I should have never touched. And the worst part, I couldn't even say I didn't see it coming. The line was always there. I just kept stepping closer to it until I finally crossed. I didn't sleep that night. My phone buzzed a few times. Missed calls. From Rachel. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The next morning, I finally picked up. Her voice was shaking, panicked. She knows, doesn't she? She does. Silence. Just breathing. What do we do now? She finally asked. There was something in her tone I hadn't expected. Not fear. Not guilt. Hope. Like part of her thought this meant something, that we could be something now that the truth was out. And that terrified me even more than Emily's heartbreak. Rachel, I said slowly, this doesn't mean anything. It never did. Her silence this time was louder. You told me. I told you what you wanted to hear so I could pretend I wasn't a piece of shit, I snapped. I hated myself in that moment. Hated the way her breath caught. But I had to kill whatever fantasy she'd built. I couldn't let this go on. You used me, she said, her voice small. Yes, I admit it. And I hate myself for it. But don't make it worse by pretending it was love. She hung up. I sat in that room for hours, the walls closing in. I thought I'd feel relief now that the truth was out. Instead, I felt like I was dissolving. Like all the pieces of my life were floating in the air and I had no idea which way was down anymore. That evening, I got a text from Emily's mother, don't you dare come near this family again. That was when it hit me. I hadn't just lost my wife. I'd lost everyone. Her family who treated me like a son. Her friends who welcomed me. Holidays, traditions, laughter all erased. My choices had set off a grenade in the middle of a family and everyone was left bleeding. And the worst scar of all was the one I'd carved into Emily. But she wasn't done with me yet. Because a week later she called. Not to scream. Not to cry. But to ask a question that would flip my world upside down all over again. When my phone rang and I saw her name on the screen, my breath caught in my throat. I stared at it, unsure whether to answer. What was left to say? What words could rebuild the burned ruins of what we once had? But something in me, guilt, maybe, or cowardice masquerading as hope, made me swipe to accept. Hello? My voice cracked like I hadn't spoken in days. Tyler, she said, steady but cold. I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest. Completely. I sat down on the edge of the motel bed, bracing myself. Okay. Was it just 3 times? Her question hit like a punch to the chest. I closed my eyes, inhaled sharply. She deserved the truth. After everything, she deserved the unfiltered, brutal truth. Even if it finished me. Yes, I said slowly. Just 3 times. It never turned into more. I didn't love her. I didn't want her. It was a weakness. I know that doesn't excuse it. Stop. Her voice didn't rise, but it froze me all the same. I don't want apologies. I want facts. You didn't love her? No. Then why? That was the question I'd been asking myself for weeks. Why? Why throw away something real for something reckless and temporary? Why destroy the person I loved most? I don't know, I whispered. I think I wanted to feel something. Anything. I felt stuck. Bored. Not with you, with myself. And Rachel, she was just there. She made it easy to forget who I was for a minute. She didn't respond for a long time. I could hear her breathing through the phone, soft and uneven. Do you realize what you've done to me? She said finally, her voice trembling but sharp. You didn't just cheat. You betrayed every memory, every word, every touch. I wake up now and I question whether any of it was real. Was it? Tell me the truth. Did you ever really love me? More than anything, I said, without hesitation. And that's what makes it worse. I loved you and I still destroyed you. I don't expect forgiveness, Emily. I don't deserve it. But I never stopped loving you. That's the only truth I have left. Silence again. Then, a sigh. Not heavy, just tired. I spoke to Rachel, she said. That chilled me. What did she say? She said you told her I never understood you. That I made you feel small. That she made you feel alive. My stomach turned. That's not I didn't mean. She also said she thought you were going to leave me for her. That hit like a knife. She was wrong. I never said that. Well, someone's lying, she said quietly. And I'm too tired to figure out who. I felt tears welling up, but I didn't let them fall. I didn't deserve the release. I'm filing for divorce, Tyler, she said. I just wanted to hear it from your mouth one last time. To know I wasn't crazy. To know I didn't imagine the betrayal. I understand, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But what she said next, I didn't see coming. By the way, she added, her tone suddenly razor sharp, you didn't ruin just our marriage. You ruined Rachel too. She's pregnant. My vision blurred. My ears rang. For a moment, I genuinely thought I hadn't heard her right. Pregnant? The word echoed through my skull like a siren. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My tongue felt heavy, like it didn't belong in my mouth anymore. Emily's words had detonated something inside me, and I couldn't even begin to process the fallout. She's what? I finally croaked. Pregnant, she repeated, slower this time. Rachel's pregnant. She told me 2 days ago. Said she wasn't going to at first, but then she realized she didn't want to raise a child in the middle of lies. I stood up from the bed like something had lit a fire under me. I started pacing the tiny room, my breath coming in short, ragged bursts. This couldn't be happening. It wasn't just the affair anymore. It was a child. A permanent consequence. A life. She says it's yours, Emily added flatly. Is it? I didn't know. God, I didn't know. I never even considered the possibility. We hadn't exactly been careful, there were no plans, no precautions. Just drunken stupidity and selfish need. I leaned against the wall, pressing my forehead to the cold surface, trying to breathe. I don't know, I said truthfully. She didn't tell me. Well, now you do, Emily replied. And I hope it eats you alive. It already was. Every hour since the night she found out, I'd been suffocating under the weight of what I'd done. But this was a new level of devastation. This wasn't just a scar on the past, this was a hand reaching into the future and twisting it out of shape. I'm going to send the divorce papers next week, she continued. There's nothing left to talk about. Don't contact me. Don't come near me. I mean it. I swallowed hard. Emily. I'm so No, she cut me off. Don't say you're sorry again. Just go. Live with what you've done. And then the line went dead. I dropped the phone and sat on the floor, staring at nothing. My heart felt like it was beating out of rhythm, like it couldn't find its place in my chest anymore. My whole life had detonated, and I was left in the wreckage, surrounded by the remains of a love I destroyed and a future I never wanted but might now be responsible for. I didn't call Rachel. Not right away. I couldn't. I needed time to breathe, to scream, to collapse. But eventually, I did. Because I needed answers. And what she told me wasn't just unexpected, it shattered what little dignity I had left. It took me 3 days to work up the nerve. 3 days of sitting in that suffocating motel room, rewatching every moment with Rachel in my head like a film I couldn't turn off. I thought of her lips, her voice, her laugh, and how all of it had turned sour. I thought of Emily's face when she told me. How calm she sounded and how much more terrifying that was than yelling or sobbing. And then I picked up the phone and dialed Rachel. She answered on the second ring. Tyler, she said, her voice brittle. I need to talk, I said. Really talk. There was a pause. Then, okay. Come over. Her apartment was only 15 minutes away, but the drive felt like hours. My hands shook on the wheel. I kept replaying the same line in my head, she's pregnant. She says it's yours. And I had no idea what I wanted to hear when I arrived. Confirmation? Denial? Forgiveness? Rachel opened the door in a hoodie and sweatpants, her hair in a messy bun. She looked tired. Not fragile, just worn. Like someone carrying more than she knew how to hold. We sat in silence for a moment before I spoke. Are you really pregnant? She didn't flinch. She nodded once. Yes. My chest caved in. Is it mine? She looked at me then. Really looked. And for a moment, her eyes softened. I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? I asked, louder than I meant to. She rubbed her hands together. It could be yours. Or it could be James's. That name hit me like a slap. James? Who the hell is James? She let out a bitter laugh. My ex. We got back in touch around the same time you and I started. I stood up, pacing her living room, trying to make sense of the timeline. So all the time you were acting like we had something real, you were also? I didn't plan this, she snapped, her voice rising. I didn't plan any of it. You think I wanted to fall for my sister's husband? You think I wanted to be the other woman? I was lonely, Tyler. Just like you. Her voice broke then, and suddenly she wasn't angry anymore. She was scared. A girl in a storm she helped create but couldn't navigate. And I couldn't even muster enough spite to blame her because I was the one who opened the door in the first place. I haven't told James, she whispered. He doesn't know about you. About the baby. About any of it. I sat back down, rubbing my temples. We need a paternity test. She nodded. I know. We sat in silence after that. Two people who ruined something sacred and were now shackled to a future neither of us asked for. There was no romance in the air. No lingering touches or whispered what-ifs. Just the grim weight of consequence. I'm sorry, Rachel, I said finally. For all of it. I am too, she said. But sorry doesn't fix anything. And she was right. The damage was done. But the aftermath, that was only just beginning. The next few weeks passed in a kind of suspended animation. I moved out of the motel and into a friend's spare room, a grim, boxy space with no windows and the constant hum of a ceiling fan that sounded like it was about to fall apart. It matched my state perfectly, broken, temporary, barely holding together. I spent most of my time waiting for a call from the lab, waiting for divorce papers, waiting for some kind of closure that never seemed to come. Rachel scheduled the paternity test on her own. She didn't ask for help. Didn't ask me to come. I think part of her still believed we could rebuild something, but she didn't say it out loud anymore. We both knew we were drifting, tethered only by the possibility of a child. And even that felt like a noose around both our necks. When the test results arrived, she texted me 2 words, "Not yours." I stared at the message for what felt like an hour. I reread it. Again. Again. Relief flooded my chest, first sharp, undeniable, like coming up for air after nearly drowning. But then came something else. Something darker. Emptiness. Like I'd been stripped of even the illusion of meaning in what I'd done. There was no child. No future. Just betrayal for nothing. I called her. She answered but didn't say anything. "Thank you for telling me," I said quietly. "I thought you should know before Emily hears it through someone else," she replied. "She knows." I told her as soon as I got the results. I closed my eyes. "And?" She didn't say much. Just nodded and said, "That makes sense." That hurt more than if she'd screamed. It meant she'd already stopped seeing me as someone who mattered. She wasn't waiting for explanations anymore. Or justice. Or even pain. She'd moved on to the part where I was just another chapter in a story she'd never want to reread. "Rachel," I said slowly, "we can't keep talking. Not like this. I can't fix anything with you. I don't even want to try." "I know," she said, and to her credit, there was no protest. No begging. Just quiet resignation. "You were never really mine anyway." I wanted to hate her. But I couldn't. Because she was right. I wasn't hers. I wasn't even mine anymore. I was just a shell of a man who made a choice one night and destroyed everything that had ever been good in his life. After that call, I sat in the dark for hours. No TV. No music. Just the sound of my breath and the endless ache in my chest. I thought about Emily, not the version of her with cold eyes and clipped sentences, but the one who used to sleep curled up against me, who used to hum to herself while folding laundry, who used to kiss my neck in the mornings like it was the most natural thing in the world. And I thought about the man who let all of that go. For what? For 3 nights. For a moment of escape. And now? I had nothing left but regret. I started seeing a therapist not long after. Not because I believed it would make anything better, but because I didn't trust myself to carry the weight of what I'd done alone anymore. Her name was Dr. Kaplan. Middle-aged, firm but not unkind, with this way of looking at you like she already knew where the bleeding was, even if you hadn't noticed it yourself yet. I told her everything by the 3rd session, about Emily, about Rachel, about the affair, the pregnancy scare, the fallout. I left nothing out. I wasn't looking for redemption. I just wanted someone to hear the truth without flinching. "You didn't cheat because you stopped loving your wife," she said once after a long silence. "You cheated because you stopped loving yourself. And you thought someone else's attention might fill that hole." It stuck with me. That sentence echoed louder than the screams I'd imagined from Emily or the guilt I wore like a second skin. Maybe she was right. Maybe it wasn't about Rachel at all. Maybe it was about me, the man who walked around pretending he was happy because his life looked good from the outside, but who'd been quietly rotting on the inside. Still, therapy didn't erase the consequences. Every morning I woke up and the first thing I thought of was her. Emily. I wondered where she was, what she was doing, who she was becoming now that I wasn't part of her picture. Was she sleeping better without my lies beside her? Did she still cook that lemon rosemary chicken? Was someone else making her laugh the way I used to? I knew I had no right to those questions anymore. But I asked them anyway in the quiet moments when memory hit the hardest. One evening, months later, I ran into her. It wasn't planned, just one of those cruel twists the universe likes to play when you least expect it. I was walking out of a bookstore of all places, and there she was, standing across the street, talking to a man I didn't recognize. She looked different. Stronger. There was a calm in her that hadn't been there before, not even during the good years of our marriage. Our eyes met. She didn't smile. She didn't frown. She just looked at me. And then she turned back to her conversation as if I was nothing more than someone she used to know. Not an ex-husband. Not a traitor. Just irrelevant. I didn't approach. I didn't wave. I just stood there, stunned, as if I'd seen a ghost. That's when I knew, truly knew, that I'd lost her forever. Not just her presence. Not just her love. Her trust. Her memory of me as someone good. Someone safe. And once you lose that, there's no getting it back. Not in this lifetime. The months that followed were quieter. Still painful, still hollow in all the places I had once been full, but less chaotic. Less explosive. The fires had burned through everything already, the marriage, the family bonds, the illusions I'd clung to, and now I was just sifting through ash, trying to understand who I was supposed to be next. I didn't date. I couldn't. Not because no one wanted me, but because I no longer trusted myself to be anything but destructive. I was toxic soil, and I wasn't about to poison someone else just because I was lonely. I threw myself into work, buried my guilt in spreadsheets and late nights and empty coffee cups. I stayed late even when I didn't need to. I volunteered for extra projects. People thought I was dedicated, focused. They had no idea I was simply hiding from myself. Avoiding mirrors. Avoiding sleep. Avoiding anything that would force me to remember the sound of Emily's voice the night she told me she was done. Rachel eventually moved. I heard it through a mutual acquaintance, packed up, left town, no goodbye. Took a job in Chicago. Tried to start over. I don't blame her. We both needed distance. We were like two magnets flipped the wrong way, drawn together at first and then violently repelled when reality snapped back into place. I never reached out to her again. Not even when I wanted to. What would I say? That I hoped she was okay? That I didn't hate her even if she helped me ruin the best thing I ever had? No. Some wounds aren't meant to be reopened. One day, I got the divorce papers in the mail. Thick envelope. Her handwriting on the corner. My name and hers, side by side one last time. I opened it with shaking hands, read every word even though I didn't need to. The legal language felt so cold, so transactional. Like it was just the end of a business deal. But it wasn't. It was the death certificate of the life we built together. I signed it. I mailed it back. And then I sat in my car for an hour and cried like a man who finally realized the full cost of his own destruction. I thought about writing her. One letter. Just once. Not to beg, not to win her back, that ship had sunk and I was the one who drilled the holes. I just wanted to say that I'd changed. That I'd learned something. That maybe someday she could remember me as more than the man who broke her. But I never sent it. Because that letter would have been for me, not her. And the one thing I'd finally learned was that real atonement isn't about being forgiven. It's about learning to live with the silence that comes after the apology never arrives. It's been over a year now. A quiet, aching year of learning to exist in the wreckage I created. I live alone in a small apartment on the outskirts of town. It's not much, but it's enough. I filled the space with silence, with books I pretend to read, with meals for one, and the kind of solitude that doesn't feel peaceful, just necessary. I keep the place clean. Not out of pride, but because disorder feels too familiar, too close to what I let happen in my own life. I don't talk about Emily anymore. Not to friends. Not to family. Not even to the therapist, not really. The sessions shifted focus from the explosion to the ashes. From guilt to rebuilding. But she's always there, just beneath the surface. In the songs I avoid on the radio. In the scent of rosemary and lemon that still haunts me when I pass certain restaurants. In the way I sometimes catch myself reaching for my phone, forgetting she's not someone I get to call anymore. There's no new woman. No redemption arc. No grand epiphany that makes it all okay. That's the truth most people don't want to hear. Some mistakes don't have a beautiful resolution. Some losses just stay lost. And some betrayals echo for a lifetime, especially the ones we commit against those who loved us the most. I saw her once more. Months after the papers were signed. She was at a park, walking her dog, talking to a man I didn't recognize. They looked easy together. Comfortable. She laughed, that same bright, effortless laugh that used to belong to us. And for a moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in so long I almost didn't recognize it, gratitude. Not for what I did. Never for that. But for the fact that she'd found a way through it. That the fire I set hadn't burned her all the way down. That she still had light in her. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and just chose not to acknowledge it. Either way, I stood there for a long moment, watching her live a life I no longer had a place in. And then I turned and walked away. Sometimes people ask me why I never tried harder to get her back. Why I didn't show up at her door, flowers in hand, tears in my eyes, ready to beg. And the answer is simple. Because love without trust is just a performance. And I had already played my part too well. So I write this now, not as an appeal, not as a confession in hopes of release, but as a record. A testimony. A reminder to myself of who I became, what I lost, and why. Because no matter how many days pass, some stories you carry forever. And this one? This one's mine.